What's going on right now?
I don't know. Why don't Artemis? Why don't you tell us what you know? I'll supplement while I try to work this.
So as I understand it, for the past few months at least, Initiative has been spearheading a plan, along with the rest of the Imperium, to invade Hard Knock's home system of Rage. Rage is a
Oh, wow.
C5 wormhole. I don't know the statics at the moment. I'll need to look those up, but if you want to check it out on Zkill, I'm sure somebody can link it for us in the Twitch chat.
Yeah, I see it. I got it.
In this wormhole, it's Hard Knock's home system. They have 2 keep stars. They have a myriad of other rather expensive citadels, and of course, because it's their home system, they're going to have all of their ships, all of their capitals, everything in there. Presumably some AT ships as well at some point. Worth noting that because this is wormhole space, if any of those citadels die, you have full loot drop with the normal 50% mechanic, so half of the stuff is expected to drop. Right now, you've got about 600 bombers is what we're estimating are in there, plus a couple of dreads that were jumped in, and then miscellaneous support. The Imperium does have worm control or hull control for the moment. We'll see if that changes over time as Hard Knocks gets organized. As far as I can tell, no organized defense has been made yet. But at the moment, it's just a bunch of bombers, like 3.5 full fleets of bombers and a couple of dreads. They've knocked over a few offline towers. Those towers were only up to Tower Lock System or Moon Lock System, which was the way to prevent invasions, or at least delay invasions and give some warning in the past. But with Citadels, it's no longer relevant. So some offline towers are dead. We're going to watch as some citadels get reinforced, and word on the street is this is a proper invasion and eviction, so they're going to be going to try and kill those keep stars and everything.
That's pretty crazy. I remember when the first Keep Star went down, just casually, it was just accepted that thing, Hard Knocks would die before that Keep Star did.
Yeah, now they have 2 keep stars in there. That's confirmed.
Yep.
And from what I understand, it was a surprise that was successful, and they took down a series of towers, and those towers now vacate the space for new towers to be put up. And we're talking about the old-fashioned towers now, not the new the drilling platforms. Which means that they can actually secure a bastion, small bastions inside this space for their own, basically, supply line. And that's a big deal. So hull control and ships in system are going to be a big deal against these 2 keep stars.
The pause could be useful in the short term, but really, you're just going to want to get a citadel up in there. Like, if they've got 4 full bomber fleets, presumably they can reship them. We've seen freighters coming in and out, so I'm told. So those are probably going to be coming in with more and more ships that people can reship into. Once you get a citadel up in there, the pause will be pretty much useless.
Oh, look at this. They say, well, we don't know if this is true, but Captain Ashen says that the nodes were reinforced. Now, we know this was planned in advance, so maybe Init sent word to CCP to reinforce this node so it didn't crash on this fight. It's a good question by Kashinsky. And hopefully that's an accurate answer there. Yep, so confirmation, at least the second source says the nodes are reinforced, so we won't have any timeouts because the servers can't handle all the people in there. Do we know what local is? I think it's, this is just an estimated guess of about 250.
You're not gonna get a local count.
No, but I'm thinking if somebody, we know that there's about 5 fleets in there, 5 full fleets, maybe a 6th fleet, so that's at 255 each. Talking over
501 people involved in the destruction of the Minmatar control tower.
Wait, don't throw me off. What's that about? How many people?
That's one of the towers that got destroyed in that wormhole. So one of the towers that got destroyed has 501 people involved on that.
Yeah, I think
I got somebody who wants to say something.
Greetings, parents. My name is Zed.
Is that a commercial break? We know that there are multiple Init fleets in there, and also Imperium fleets, mostly probably Goon Swarm, coming in, and I'm sure they're well over 500 people. That's a good invasion.
68 people have gotten on a kill mail so far in the system.
Yeah. Yeah, there's Init alone has over 600 people. That's from one of our sources. I'm going to say sources because I don't know if people want to admit that they're giving me information. So in this case, we're going to say sources, but there are multiple people talking to me at the same time, giving me information that are in this fight. We'll do our best to protect their identity unless they want to be.
Two sources
is-
familiar with the matter.
But I'll try to get multiple sources because I don't like to just run off and say whatever somebody tells me. That's how errors are made.
It
I-
is worth noting, just like to put things into perspective, you've got to think of this first initial step as like the initial reinforcement on somebody staging Keepstar in nullsec or something like that. Yes, it's a wormhole, so it's harder to get into theoretically, but because this was a surprise, it's like it was nullsec. So this is first Rio. Nobody was expecting it. There's probably not going to be a response fleet. The first response fleet we're probably going to see is a little bit later once the Imperium fleet numbers have hopefully died down. HK has taken time to form up themselves, maybe call in some allies. Sure, some offline pauses have died. In the grand scheme of things, it's not probably a big deal. We're going to watch some Citadels get Rio'd as a result, but this is initial Rio, so we're probably not going to see a big fight over this. Hull control will be the first thing that gets fought over here.
A huge part of this fight, and the reason why we're seeing so many people flood into the wormhole, is the fact that these wormholes are not always easy to find and are not always convenient to access. So once
Whoa.
once you have that entrance in, you want to pile in as many people as possible. So even if you don't need 500 people for the initial ref, you want to bring as many people as possible because all of those people are going to log off in the wormhole and simply wait until the next timer.
So in it, I think we have. We'll need to confirm, but over 600 people, and goons have at least 2 fleets that are jackdaws, I believe, and I think in it are mostly in bombers, if I'm not mistaken.
I gotta bounce though, guys. Good luck.
Thanks. We can check kill mails to see what kind of ships they're in. Right now, I'm sure that HK has put out a CT, put out full alert. Everybody's probably getting in that can get in. They probably contacted their allies, Laserhawks, which is also another big group. Laserhawks are reportedly rolling holes now to get a connection. What that means is they're trying to find a way into this system because systems in wormhole space are isolated. And if you have control of the entrances, you can prevent a horde of people coming in, but you have to hold them at the gates. And those are those wormholes that lead out. So what Laserhawks, those are the allies of the people defending, which would be Hard Knocks, are doing is trying to find a way in.
And it is worth noting that one of the ways they can find a way in is called rage rolling. So they'll find a wormhole that has a static connection to a C5, which is the class of system that Rage is, if I recall correctly. And they'll just continuously roll that wormhole over and over again, hoping to get lucky, and one of those wormholes will spawn into Rage. That way the wormhole will spawn, and the attackers, the Imperium, will not already have it pre-bubbled like they will the existing statics within Rage itself. If they have their fleet already prepped, sitting on the hole as they're rolling it, that means that they will almost be guaranteed to get their fleet through the wormhole first. What the Imperium needs to be doing in order to try and counter this is just have probes out in system at all times, constantly refreshing. Because when a hole is spawned in a new system, it spawns when a ship jumps into it, but the signature doesn't appear in everybody's probe scanner for a little bit of period afterwards. This is to help hunting and wormholes be a bit more effective. However, if you're constantly refreshing your probes, you can see it as soon as the wormhole itself spawns. So somebody's going to have to just be constantly mashing refresh on probes in order to hopefully catch new wormhole spawning and get dictors over there as quickly as possible to stop any reinforcement fleet from getting in. That said, this is the Hard Knocks home system. They probably have spare ships, so what the allies are likely going to do is just rage roll with a fleet of interceptors. And then as soon as they get a connection, jump all those interceptors in, warp them to the Keepstar, dock up, and get handed ships from HK.
Yeah, that is the voice of Artemis Albosa, and he is helping me cover this story live. We're bringing you the information. We have great support from the Talking Stations community here, giving me information on what's going on in there. And there's some interesting stuff coming up. I can't talk about it yet, but this story will unfold over the next few days. We'll cover it fully, I'm sure, for the next few shows. This is a big, big deal. We also know that Init is in Ravens. They have a Raven fleet in there, and they're swapping out to bombers. Bombers are terrific in that they can do a ton of damage to structures. So those will be key in the future of this fight. And this is going to be multiple fights, not just one fight. They have reinforcement cycles to go through. They have attrition that's going to be an issue. And this is really like fighting a big battle on a muddy slope. It's going to be very messy, very interesting. Things are going to move out from under people, and even the best plans set won't hold up to the realities of wormhole fighting. I do know that this is not something that was done on a whim. This is something that was planned for at least a year. I'm hearing from multiple sources, and this is where it gets interesting. And it is seen as the tip of this spear going in, but we don't know if it was actually their plan or if this was possibly created or dreamed up or aided by enemies of Hard Knocks. And Hard Knocks over the last year has made a ton of enemies. They've really been hard on their colleagues in wormhole space, and they've been really hard on nullsec entities in the drones region. Hard Knocks was one of the groups that came in to basically play in drones region. So they were able to come out from wormhole space, set up some operating bases in the drone regions, and just attack the area and really make it hard on renters that lived in that area. And that has been going on for over a year. It was so successful, it actually brought down the security apparatus that was holding drones together. But in doing so, they made a lot of enemies in the known space systems. But at the same time, they were pretty hard on wormhole groups that were their colleagues that weren't as big as they were. Hard Knocks is known as the biggest wormhole group, and they have the strongest coalition of wormhole alliances with Laserhawks helping them. So it's going to be really interesting. This is possibly the kind of reminds me of Mesoamerica, where the Aztecs were rough on everybody around them. So when the Spaniards came in, they grouped up with the little tribes that had been oppressed for so long and totally toppled the Aztecs. But yeah, go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see who the various wormhole groups dislike more. Whether they dislike K-Spacers and the Imperium, or they dislike Hard Knocks more. Because for a long time it has been in the culture within wormholes that if quote-unquote K-Space groups try and live in wormholes, you just evict the K-Space groups. And the same goes for if they try and invade and evict a wormhole group, then you will go and defend the wormhole group. Now that culture has diminished as of late, but it's interesting to see like how that will play out in this particular case.
All right, getting a lot of information. We'll try to sort it out for you, but just to recap, can you actually recap for us, just for people who are arriving? We have hundreds more that are listening now.
So the basic deal is Hard Knock citizens most recently came into the nullsec scene with the war with the DRF, as Matterall was going over earlier. Their main wormhole staging system called Rage. It's not actually called Rage, it's just its nickname. It's a C5 wormhole, and it is getting invaded right now by a number of fleets by the Imperium. Reports are this is spearheaded, quote-unquote, by the Initiative. It's been planned for months. And initially what they did is they brought in a whole bunch of bombers and jackdaw fleets. They killed some offline towers, which were set up previously in order to moonlock the system so that people couldn't set up a beachhead. But with Citadels, that sort of changed things. Now, looking forward, looks like they've got some Ravens in as well and a few Dreads. And so, what we're expecting to have happen is they're going to start reinforcing any Citadels in the system. Rage has not one but two Keep Stars in its wormhole, as well as a myriad of other very expensive Citadels. And it's worth noting that these Citadels, because they're anchored in wormhole space, first of all, they're going to have shorter reinforcement cycles. So, depending on how the timers are set and how the Imperium wants to play it, this could be over in up to 3 days. Also, any stuff that is in those wormhole citadels will drop like normal loot. So 50% of it is expected to drop. That's any subcaps, any wormhole loot, any skill injectors, Plex, Alliance tournament chips, etc.
Huge payday. All this stuff drops or gets destroyed, right? This is not like your typical Keepstar destruction. We already have a video, so their propaganda looks like it's out in front of them, which is really well planned. You're going to do an invasion, you have your propaganda set. That means you are on top of it. So we'll play that video in just a second.
It is worth noting that you can consider this sort of like the initial reinforcement timer. Hang on one sec.
It being planned a year in advance is, or many months in advance, maybe up to a year in advance, that would be typical for an invasion that was very serious. Because these kinds of evictions, you cannot just jump into a wormhole and evict somebody who's living there. You need to seed ships and seed supplies in there over time, very slowly, without being detected. Because again, there's no way for them to detect you in their wormhole space unless they're watching all the holes that rotate around all the time. So people sneak in, they log off, they maybe set up infrastructure to put things there. Usually you log off. If you set up infrastructure, it can be detected over time. And you basically hide your characters in there. And that's usually how these things are done. And it takes a small and very dedicated group to do that. So something at this scale is not typical. And it would have to have been planned many, many months in advance. And it looks like it has been. So it's serious. This is not just an attack. This looks like an invasion.
As far as any sort of organized defense from the residents or any allies they may bring in, you can consider this sort of like the initial reinforcement of a nullsec citadel or nullsec staging system. It happens by surprise. You don't know when it's going to happen. And for the most part, it's not usually contested. If Hard Knocks knew this was coming, if they had maybe postponed or somehow delayed the invasion coming in, it could form up. Maybe they would try and fight these timers. But the first fight we're going to see is probably going to be over hull control. Essentially, what the defenders are going to try and do is bring in their allies, bring in their pilots who are currently not in the wormhole, because wormholes, it's worth noting, you can't jump clone into them, you can't death clone into them, as is a common misconception. You have to get into them via normal wormhole connections. And so what people will be trying to do is find existing connections. So what's going to be happening right now is citadels are going to be getting reinforced, but while this is happening, you always have to have a certain portion of the attacking fleet guarding the static wormholes, and also a certain portion of the attacking fleet ready to respond to any new wormholes that are activated or spawn in the system. So at this moment, more than likely, there are going to be allies of Hard Knocks who are actively rolling wormholes, rolling C5 connections, trying to find a random connection into Hard Knocks' home system, into Rage, such that they can either bring ships with them or just bring in themselves in scepters, in pods, in shuttles, and whatever, in order to reship with ships that HK already have in system. So what the Imperium needs to do is, number one, reinforce the structures they want to kill. Number two, maintain hull control on existing wormholes. And number three, be on the lookout and be ready to collapse and guard any new spawning wormholes. So Apple Pear, are you on this fleet right now?
No, I just got home literally like 15 minutes ago and was like, okay. The only thing I heard about this is that we were doing fleet today and that the upside on that was pretty high, and but I wasn't able to be there anyway, so like I didn't hear anything about it. So yeah, that's the only thing I heard about this like yesterday. Like we're doing a fleet today, we need a few FCs, and we're not going to tell you where it is because the upside on this is amazing. And for the rest, when I came home, I saw 2 Jackdaw fleet pings, and I saw a ping here from, hey, we're shooting HK. So then I was like, oh, 1 + 1 is 2. That's probably what we're doing today. And for the rest, I got all the information from here, and we will see what happens. I'm excited.
Confirming TIS listeners more informed than Imperium insiders.
Hi, kids. We are hanging out right now. Matterall, I think you're muted, so I don't know if folks can hear you.
Matrol
That
is
was Menlo.
indeed muted.
coming
Matrol
in
is
to say
indeed
it.
muted.
All right, good.
Oh, okay. Well, everyone who just heard his voice, that is Brisk Rubal, current CSM member of the Initiative, real-life politician, generally considered to be a good guy, also sort of the voice of wormholes on the CSM is an interesting plot twist.
Well, hey, somebody's got to represent them. So.
Yeah, of course you have the metagame on the CSM. So if you're the inner representative who wants to invade wormholes, is then the wormhole representative. That's of course a good.
Well, it helps to be here, and now these guys can't say that I don't have any experience PvPing in a wormhole.
That's
So,
true. But give us a TLDR, Brisk. Like you're there, you know what's happening. Give us. Can you give us a bit of lead up what has happened towards this? Can you give us a bit of more background on the story? That would be amazing.
I will tell you guys what I can tell you, and I'll be honest. This has been one of the best kept secrets I have seen in EVE in a very, very long time. I won't go into all the details because obviously this is still unfolding, and we're still dealing with the potential impacts. And Hard Knocks has been very pinging for the last couple hours since we started doing this, so they're ready. They know we're here, and they know what we're going to do. The fact is, this was a very, very well OPSEC plan. We've been working on this for months, and I think the whole concept was what can we do that hasn't been done before, and killing the first Keep Star in EVE that everyone has believed would be 100% unassailable and completely untouchable, and has been for 2 years. I think that we kind of set our sights on that because that's something it likes to do. We like to do the impossible. So I think this was something that kind of got in everybody's heads and they got excited about it. And that's what we've been planning. So this is going to be a long campaign. We know it's going to be a long campaign. We've told all our guys to be prepared for that, and that we're going to be running stuff 24/7 for at least a week minimum. We're looking forward to it. So it's going to be fun.
All right, who's camera ready so I can bring him up and put him on? Oh, my mic is back. Right? Am I right? My mic back?
And can you give us also? Can you also give us like you went to the wormhole, Brisk, and what was the first actions you did? Can you give us like I just got home, as I said, like 15 minutes ago, so I didn't have all the time, all the things to read. So when you entered the wormhole, what did you do first? What happened there? What are the steps that have been taken that is at least everybody can hear, read, and see Killboard about? But can you give us also a basic overview of that?
Hold on. Hold on. That is the voice of Apple Perry's an FC for the Imperium, and he's discussing this with Brisk Rubal, who's in the initiative and inside this attack that's happening right now. Thanks.
So first thing we did when we got in was we started hitting some of these towers. There are towers pretty much on every moon. I mean, this wormhole, Rage, which is the nickname for 115405, there's more infrastructure in here than anything, than almost anywhere. And Hard Knocks, this has been their ancestral home for a long time. So first thing we started to do was clearing some of these small towers out, and then we started dropping our own. We basically need to establish a beachhead today that will enable us to stage out of here for the rest of the week. So that's basically what we've been doing. We have 3 full fleets in the wormhole right now, and we're trying to maintain hull control to keep folks from coming in, and we're also in the process of seating and getting our stuff ready, so that we'll be ready to start doing the real Bob's work here, hopefully in the rest of the day.
Real Bob's work. I
I
love
was
that.
going to say, does this mean that the Imperium has forsaken the one true space pope for Bob?
Well, I've never been an Amar guy, so there you go. Caldari Master Race.
Well, it's not just Initiative in there. Who else is in there with you guys?
It's us and we have colleagues from the rest of the Imperium, from Goons primarily. But it's hard to tell who's all in here because with no local, I can't see exactly who's here. But I know we have.
I think if my understanding was correct, there was 5 fleets that at least initially came in.
This is Lieutenant Condor from the Initiative.
Are you initiative again, Condor?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
So there were 5 fleets you were saying from?
That was my understanding.
See, it's hard. Like you don't even know because you only know the extent of your fleet. So you have, say, 255, which is the maximum number of people in one fleet, and then you have to see other groups or hear from an FC that there are other groups. You really don't see them in any way. I guess inside of your voice comms, you could count how many people are there.
Our voice comms are pretty full right now, so it's been fun. And I'll be honest, I got to give the guys credit. Our comm discipline's been pretty good. Everybody's excited. I think once we got in system and folks realized what we were doing, everybody went crazy. So
this is something you guys
high.
are up for. Yeah, this is something you're up for.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, this is historic. This is going to be a history book kind of thing. You know, Fort Knox is the first keep star in the game, and it has largely been viewed as impossible to kill. So if we manage to pull this off, it's going to be a big deal.
I think everyone's, at least on the initiative side, I think everyone's curious to see if we actually ref the keep star and kill it, what's going to drop. Because Hard Knocks is per capita, I believe, some of the richest alliance in the game.
The interesting thing will be to see what they are able to squander away or keep away from the keep star death and actually safe up in the wormhole or save it or what their strategy will be with that.
And that is Laser Clear from your Imperium, right?
I'm in it, yes.
In it.
Hello.
That's Concentration coming in, right?
Yep.
Also from Init.
Init. So we have a lot of Init people inside. We're in public on Talking in Stations Discord. You're welcome to join us. If you have information, we'd like to hear it. So who in here, if anyone, was on the inside of the information? Because I'm sure it was a very small group. To hold this kind of a secret for that long, it must have been a handful of people.
I was made aware of it about a month ago, I think. But we were told very strictly, do not talk about it, do not think about it, don't bring it up to anybody, and keep it quiet, because if word of this gotten out, there's no way we would have been able to even start doing it. And so I know the guys were very good about putting together a lot of ruse cruises, basically, to try to get folks to think we were doing something that we weren't going to do. Like we put up a keep star in IGE. We've restaged a lot of our super caps and other assets and moved them around and been visible doing that, so that people would see that and think we were making a move, so that this was covered, and that was a good thing. And I think it worked, because as far as we tell, up until literally, we landed on grid with the keep stars, nobody, even in our own fleets, had any idea what we were doing. Which that tells me we did what we had to do.
Even as a co-CEO with inside of in it. I knew when we landed in the wormhole this
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So this is like a very, very well kept secret. So again, taking it from the top, we're looking at an invasion here of what is essentially called Fort Knox, right? That's the first keep star that went up. It's called Fort Knox. It sits in a wormhole. I think it's a C5, if I'm not mistaken, not a C6.
That's right.
J115405.
Yeah, say that one more time for the record.
J115405.
That's nicknamed Rage. That's what they've called that system. And that is the home of Hard Knocks. And Hard Knocks has a history of being one of the bigger, if not biggest, wormhole operations in existence. They are being invaded now by one of the bigger groups in Nullsec, and that would be the Initiative and Imperium. Mostly the Initiative have planned this, and I wonder if this operation is a joint effort from the groups that have been kind of persecuted by Hard Knocks over the last few months and years. If they're not having a hand in this, because it's going to take a lot of wormhole effort to make sure that those pathways are clear and the surprise attack was set up properly. Very interesting to see that. I think that would be a marvelous addition to the story if true.
I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of pile in now that it's actually happened, but from the sounds of things of what Brisk is telling us from the inside, this was sort of like Initiative in the Imperium just looking for a new challenge and setting their sights on Hard Knocks because it was there for the taking.
Well, isn't it true that most of the stuff that that is intriguing is a combination of motivations, right? You have one group has a motivation to have revenge and another group that has the means, and this just kind of has a couple things going for it. One is you have keep stars to kill, and that's something the Imperium and Initiative has become very good at. They've knocked out more than a few now. At the same time, you have the dynamics of wormhole space make it so that those kills are much more valuable. You're actually destroying people's stuff. There's no asset safety. Hard Knocks will not recover from this. If their stuff gets destroyed, and if their stuff, the stuff that's in there is the majority of their equipment, that is all gone. There is no getting that back. And the loot drops should be huge for the people who managed to pull this off. So, definitely some incentive.
I think that's one of the things that's going to be fun. I think that's going to be one of the fun things. Is it's been a long time since we've seen a lot of big fights in wormholes between non-wormhole groups. I think this is probably one of the very few times you're going to see Nullsec taking a fight to a wormhole group in the wormhole rather than the other way around. So that's kind of part of the challenge, and I appreciate that. We've gone into Laserhawks and staging before and fought them, and they kicked our asses. And I think whenever you take a group of Nullsec guys and you take them in a wormhole, it's always dangerous because, the things that we're used to being able to do, staging forward, reshipping, those types of stuff, you can't do that. So it's a new dynamic for us, having to learn how to do this at the same time that we're trying to run everything. But I think, like was noted, the potential upside is pretty high. Not only do we get in the history books potentially, and at least right now we're the talk of Eve, which is cool. But we're looking at a potential, possibly trillion-isk or more payday if we can get all this stuff out of the system.
So somebody's asked who Hard Knocks is.
Hard Knocks is one of the oldest, one of the most well-known, one of the most organized wormhole groups in the game. They've been around for a long time. They have been, basically, if there is a boogeyman in Eve that Nullsec Rockwell pilots cry thinking about at night and have nightmares about, it's about a Hard Knock wormhole gang coming through and killing their stuff. They're just that good. And they have basically been at the apex of the wormhole game for a while now. They've actually gone so far as to branch out into Nullsec now too. So it's these guys are a good fight, and we're looking forward to it.
And we also know that inside those keep stars, again, there are two of them. The first one that was ever built, and a second one that was built as insurance for the first one. We expect there's how much in loot in those things?
I mean, I think we have a couple of former HK members that we've been talking to, but I think the low side is probably about $1 trillion worth of stuff. I mean, in addition to the fact that these two keep stars have been their main staging, this has been HK's ancestral home for a long time. They've got, I'm sure this is where they've got a lot of random stuff. They've got markets and seating and dreads and all kinds of stuff in there. And given the fact that we were able to do this with a relatively large amount of surprise, being able to get all that stuff out is going to be difficult. So I think that's going to be part of our challenge, and one of the reasons why we're going to have fleets going all the time, because we don't want them to be able to evac a lot of their stuff. We want to be able to kill it and keep it. So that's going to make that part of our job a lot harder.
Yeah, and that must have been, I mean, if you were in Hard Knocks and you have two keep stars in a wormhole system, you probably feel invincible. And so if there's any place in all of EVE Online you're going to keep your stuff, it's going to be in there, like your valuable stuff. Or I think I've heard there might be tournament ships in there. We heard that earlier. Or there might be just a ton of really, really unique assets.
It will be interesting to see what drops if we can pull this off.
The other thing that's probably most of these structures are likely T2 rigged for maximum efficiency in wormhole space. So that's going to be another expensive thing for CTO rigs and Keepstar rigs that are among the hundreds of billions for each one of them. Those are going to be some expensive rigs.
It is worth noting that a lot of wormhole groups, what they do for income is that various members or groups of members within these organizations will have other wormholes that they use as farming wormholes. And so what you'll see is that, sure, they may lose a lot of assets here, but they'll also still have all that infrastructure, which will allow them to regain assets. Certainly not anywhere near what they currently have, but at least a significant portion. Like, these members won't be losing literally everything here. They'll still have their own farming holes, they'll still have other assets in other areas of space, etc.
Hey, Artemis, take over giving information out for a few minutes. I'm going to try to get talk bubbles up so we can see who's talking in here. Take me just a second. Thanks for joining us.
Guys,
go ahead.
Sorry, just for the record, I'm not being smug. We're not being smug. I mean, look, I'm trying to be fair here. Hard Knocks this will probably be the toughest fight we've had in quite a long time. These guys are good. This is their home base. They know what they're doing. This is what they're experts at. I don't think any of us have any belief that we're going to walk out of here with $1 trillion worth of stuff. I'm saying that as this has the potential to be able to do that if we manage to pull this off. But I think what we have told everybody, and what I think we all think and we recognize, is these guys are a legit opponent. That's why we want to fight them. They are good, they are strong, they are tough, and that's why we want to do it. And if we pull this off, it will be historic, but that's a big if. So I'm confident that we can win it, but I'm not going to smug about it because, we haven't even had our first fight yet. So a lot is going to come down to, when we start fighting, how things go. We have our doctrines, we have our logistics, we have our infrastructure, we know what we're going to try to do, and we can guess what they're going to try to do in response. But until rubber meets the road, we're not going to know what's going to happen until it happens. So none of us are assuming anything. We're going to fight this thing out. It's going to be a hard, fun fight. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are looking for anyone in wormhole space that can shed some light on this. So if you can, Talking in Stations Discord, you can find that on talkinginstations.com. Find the Discord, and we're in the public channel. Just jump in and we will talk to you. So give us some information on the wormhole aspects of this if you can. Let us know. We're trying to get someone also from Hard Knocks, although they are probably scrambling to get organized. I doubt any one of them is going to have a chance to get on here and start talking about what's going on. Again, this is also the early phases of this, as Brisk was just saying. There hasn't actually been a fight yet. So far, it's just been taking down of infrastructure, right?
Correct.
So, Brisk, have you guys started reinforcing keep stars yet, or have you just killed the pauses and now you're working on getting your doctrines in?
As I understand it, we've killed a possum. We're working on getting the doctrines in. I am in the Stuka fleet. I know we have another fleet. We are in the Stuka fleet. We are sitting on the well, you know, I don't want to go in exactly where we're sitting, but I am not with the rest of the fleet. And I'm not sure what they are doing right now, but I have not heard from anybody that they are out there hitting the keep star yet. I'm not aware that we're doing that, so I can't tell you. But I know that I am not doing that. I'm sitting here talking to you guys.
It's a lot harder to get information in wormhole space too. You don't have the benefit of local, so you can't see how many people are in system. You can't even see anything unless people talk in local. So, and that's kind of funny. How are you guys able to resist talking in local? Has it been pretty good, or are you guys?
We've got a handful of people that have talked. In fact, I'm actually surprised that I'm not one of them, because usually I like to come in and start saying hi. I'd say maybe we got 15 guys that have said something, so, which isn't bad out of 400 or 500 people in our fleets. I give them credit for being self-disciplined.
Well, that cracks me up because they must be like dying to say something, but they're not supposed to.
Well, it's funny because I'm sitting in comms and I can actually talk to you guys because it's quiet, like no one's talking.
Yeah.
We're all kind of just like, we're just sitting, which is nice.
Everyone's sitting and awaiting with bated breath what the next move is going to.
So, what were the first moves? Bring us up to speed, and then let's predict what's going to happen next.
Hull control is going to be key over the next week. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, but bring us up to speed. What's happened so far?
So far, we formed our fleets and moved into Rage. Once we moved into Rage with our we have right now, it looks like somewhere between 400 or 500 people. Goons as well have a fleet in here as well. We came in, we killed a number of small towers immediately. Then we dropped our own and have begun seeding ships. So that's kind of the state of where we are right now.
From Zkill, it looks like a total of 6 different small control towers were killed.
Wow, 6 towers. Oh, okay. I thought it was 3, so it's gone up.
It was Zkill is showing 6 in total so far.
All right, so the first phase, I think, is to capture, destroy infrastructure. Make space for yourself, because you need to put down supplies.
Right. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be, killing a keep star in a Stuka fleet. So, I mean, folks on Reddit that were making jokes about that. Yeah. Duh. Yeah. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So we need to be able to get our stuff ready.
So the way these fights usually go, and this is again at an unprecedented scale, thousands of pilots in there, maybe 1,000 pilots. Now that I think about it, if I'm thinking 5 or 6 fleets, that comes over 1,000 because you have 255 players per fleet. When one fills up, you start a second fleet. So when you say you have more than 2 fleets, that means you have more than 500 people. In it, I believe, is over 600 people at least, and that's just in it. They also have the Imperium, which is a much bigger organization. I shouldn't say the Imperium, but say Goon Swarm and Bastion and the other guys. Together, those guys are much bigger than in it. So how many, does anybody know how many of those guys have shown up? Again, it's hard to tell. You can't just look at something and say this is the number we have like we can in nullsec space or in known space.
Right. That is one of the things that's harder. And that's what makes.
But if there's a total of, I would say there's anywhere from what we know 600 to 1,000 people in there invading. That is a much, much bigger invasion than has ever been seen in wormhole space. It's by the magnitude of 2 or 3, like much, much bigger. So, but the process is still the same. You go in there, you wreck you make space for yourself so that you can nest, because you have to stay in there and live there for 3 days at least to take out the structures over the period of 3 or 4 days. These things usually last a week or two or longer, depending on how successful the invasion is. And it really comes down to hole control, which is basically controlling the entrances to the system. And if the defenders who have the advantage here because they live there, they can reship over and over again, unless they get potted, right? We'll talk about that in a second. They can plug up those exits and entrances and hold people out. And if you manage to gain hole control, then it's a matter of keeping it. You have to basically have enough guys to protect all the entrances from being broken into. And the problem with that sort of thing, and this is the interesting part of Wormhole Space, they have a lot of different rules that they have to worry about. The techniques to fight and invade are so different in Wormhole Space. They have to worry about being potted, because if they're potted, they're launched out of the system and they have to find their way back in. So if their team doesn't have hole control, doesn't control the entrances, they can't find an easy way back in. Now that's changed a little bit over time because there's these little tiny wormholes that come from shattered systems that a frigate can go through, and so that's used as a little tunnel to like get past the blockade, so you can get in that way. But I don't know if that's very easy to do.
Do you realize how many of those that there are, though, and how many millions of those that you would have to cycle through to try and find them? It's just astronomical numbers.
Yeah, I've never done that, so it would take a determined group to try to find their way back into the hole through the frigate holes, basically.
Morning.
Yay, Kaskora's here. Kaskora is part of Talking in Stations. She's somebody who's very well acquainted with Wormhole Space. Can you quickly introduce yourself first, Kaskora?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kaskora Yari. I'm the CEO of POS Party in the Ember Sands Alliance. We're a wormhole corp. We live in C4 wormhole space, and we're a pretty long-standing wormhole entity at this point. We've been around for about 5 years, so I've been around a few wormholes, you know.
You could say that you've been around a few holes.
I know my way around a hole, you know.
But we won't go there. Can you like tell us what we're looking at? Not necessarily in this specific case, but what an invasion looks like, and what things to look for.
Well, any sort of big wormhole eviction or invasion like this, the key really centers around hole control. Wormholes only have so many entrances and exits at any given time, and those exits and entrances will change based on time. They'll just expire and new ones will form, or if enough ship mass is sent through them. And so when people are pulling ships in for an eviction like this, having lots of wormholes is beneficial because you can bring in a lot of stuff. But then once you have everything in you don't want for the attackers, they don't want the defenders to bring in any reinforcements. So then you'll want to control the entrance and exits as best as you can, keep them as low mass as possible, keep ships on them to make sure nothing can get in and out. And whoever controls the hole control really controls the eviction.
Another key point that we haven't really touched on yet here too is, as this has come as probably a surprise, people that are in some of their farming holes and stuff like that for Hard Knocks, most of their members might not even be here in this hole. So the question really is, how many people do they actually have here to defend?
Well, another thing is, how much was this planned for initially? Like, did the attackers seed in ships? Because again, with those limited entrances and exits, you can only bring in so much at a time. So often when one of these big eviction happens, there will be months of lead up of people taking alts with capital ships, putting them in the hole and logging them out. So then you have an even bigger force on the day you go. And I really don't know how much prep there was on this. I had no idea this was even going on until I was woken up this morning by all of the barrages of Discord messages from people.
Yeah,
So
that's how we wanted it.
We have seen 3 dreadnoughts on Tower Kill Mills so far. Those dreads could have come in with the main invasion force just through a regular C5 wormhole if they happen to find an all-set connection down the chain, or they could have been preceded. But so far, we know there are 3 dreads on the attacker's side. Compared to what is likely the home defense dread fleet from Hard Knocks, that's not going to be enough. But
Cascor, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How would the wormhole community react to something like this? Like, are Hard Knocks viewed as friends in the wormhole community, or is there a split there between, like, like a goon NCPL type deal?
I mean, with wormholers, we all have our allegiances. Everyone has their allies and their enemies, but for the most part, whenever somebody outside of wormhole space decides to fuck with wormholers, for the most part, all the wormholers get together, and all those grievances are pretty much put to the side, at least temporarily. I mean, at least for me, like I would always side with a wormhole over a nullstacker, like always. It's just as a wormholer, that's just what I would do.
Oh,
That
interesting.
wounds me. That wounds me.
Well, can you blame me when I get on Talking in Stations? I have everyone just like, bitching to me constantly about how much wormholes suck. They don't want to hear anything about wormholes, and it's a waste of time for me to talk about wormholes. Like, the community outside of wormhole space to wormholers isn't exactly the most friendly a lot of times. So we keep to ourselves and we support each other.
Well, in this case, Hard Knocks has been kind of hard on smaller groups. But you would still say that the wormhole community might rally around Hard Knocks instead?
Yeah, because they're still wormholers at the end of the day. And I mean, and for better or for worse, I mean, Hard Knocks has been around for a long time, and they've done some good things, they've done some bad things, and people can disagree with what they've done in the past. But they're still a part of the wormhole community, and we still would rather see more wormholers in wormhole space than to see them get kicked out. So, at least for me, I mean, yeah, there's going to be people that don't agree with that, but for the most part, when I've seen these kind of big evictions in the past, it's usually been a pretty good rallying point for wormholers.
So let's walk down this nightmare scenario for Hard Knocks. They do get destroyed. What happens to Hard Knocks in that situation?
Well, Hard Knocks is pretty big in nullsec right now. I mean, all their eggs are not in that one basket of rage. So if they get destroyed in their wormhole, I imagine they'll just continue on doing all their nullsec shenanigans and maybe rebuild another wormhole if they feel like it. I mean, they have the resources, they have the people. If they don't survive, which I mean, I'm still voting for Hard Knocks. I mean, they've got a lot of resources in that hole. So whatever happens, I think that, they're a long-standing corp. They've got good leadership. They'll make it. It's just a matter of in what version. Are they going to be more nullsec focused after this? Are they going to say screw wormholes? Don't need them anyway, or are they going to try to rebuild? Are they going to try to get even? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's definitely very possible to come back from an eviction. I mean, we did. We got evicted this spring, and we set up a new home. We came down to it, and so I suspect they'll be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, and you lost a lot in that eviction, right? What did you lose?
I mean, we lost pretty much everything. I mean, we lost all of our structures and a lot of our ships, and we pretty much lost everything. We started a new hole with a new force that someone donated to us and whatever ships we had, but in our pods. But it was a complete eviction for us. I mean, we lost everything.
Yeah, and this is it's going to be probably a magnitude bigger because these are 2 keep stars with all their stuff in it, and I think they have a lot of valuable stuff. But
Cascor, who evicted you guys?
It was a large combination of entities. It was mainly Shekel Squad, Wholesale, and Whole Control were the main entities. But then they pretty much invited everyone that would be willing to come. So at the end, it was a huge random conglomeration of people. But those were the 3 main ones.
Well, this will definitely test leadership. First of all, rallying a defense, and then second of all, should the worst be realized, holding your group together. But it's not over. It hasn't even started. We're just seeing the beginning. These are the invasion forces that have come in to knock out structures, to then seed facilities in order to, like siege machines on a castle. In order to take the castles down, they need to have infrastructure built, not just people, but infrastructure. And that's this phase that we're in now, and that's what happened today. Complete surprise attack. And Looks like it was a well-kept secret. We're trying to figure out how long the planning was. It's been really, really interesting. This is the first time I've seen such a big fight in wormhole space that I think has such, large stakes. The first Keep Star ever built is in here. There's actually 2 Keep Stars in one system. That is very rare. I don't know of any other place. Is there something like that in Delve, or is there no other place?
1DQ1. The Lagoon staging system has 2 keep.
1DQ has 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Do Laserhawks have 2, or do they just have 1? Cascor, do you know?
What, sorry, Keep Stars?
Yeah, how many Keep
Hawks
Stars
has
does Laserhawks
3.
have? Okay, so Laserhawks has got Hard Knock speed on this one.
Are they
Yes.
on the same grid?
I think so.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, you could definitely see them from. I mean, the grids now are so big; they're thousands of kilometers away, but they definitely can see them from each other.
I mean, all in all, it's going to be good for publicity for.
Yeah, I mean, these kind of big ops don't happen very often. It's a rarity to see a big eviction of this caliber, and I mean, I know that in the end it sucked that we got evicted, but those fights on the 4-star grids were some of the best fights I've ever had in this game, and just I don't know if I want to repeat it anytime soon, but I'll always remember those fights. They were epic. They'll stick with me for a long time.
Hello.
Good morning.
We're live on air, so if you're going to talk, say something meaningful. But hello, welcome. And you can join us too out there if you want. This is the public channel for Talking in Stations on Discord. You can find it through talkinginstations.com.
By the way, I'm Donovan Irish. I'm with Init.
Hi, Donovan. Can you speak up a little bit? You're a little quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, somewhere in between those two is good.
Okay, how about that?
Yeah, how's it going? What's going on in Initiative?
Not much. Just here to stare angrily at L2 and talk about wormholes, I guess. But yeah, I'm an Initiative diplomat. I'm also with Wisudot in Initiative, Condors Corporation. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely unprecedented, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So we have current numbers. It looks like on the Initiative sides, something in the area of 930 around there. And you guys are in Ravens. You guys reshipped to Ravens and bombers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were the first objectives like? What I heard you took down 6 towers.
Well, that's the thing. We can't really talk too much about what's been going or what's next or what the next ships are. I mean, the obvious tactics will be in there. Hull control, get set up to do things, but pretty much besides that, we really can't discuss too much.
Yeah.
Donovan's being very disciplined. I like it.
He's a diplomat. That's what he's supposed to do.
Exactly.
So, diplomatically speaking, are there any allies that you've brought to this?
No, we just know, Laserhawks, I think they're only allies of Dead Alliance, so we're not really too worried about all that.
We've got goons with us. I mean, they're on the grid right now, which is nice. It's nice to
have. Are you guys have any allies inside of Wormhole space at all? Are you allowed
I
to
don't know.
say?
It's hard to say. We have groups that we work with. We've got our own internal guys that do a lot of wormhole stuff, and then the SIGs and goons that do wormhole pathfinders and those guys that we work with. I wouldn't say in general that we have a lot of relationships with the wormhole crews. I try to reach out to those guys and talk to them as much as I can for CSM stuff, but not for Init stuff. So I think we're under the impression, at least as far as I can tell, that we are on our own here. It's just going to be us and Imperium folks that are willing to stick it out this week. I don't think we expect any cavalry coming to the rescue, but
You are the cavalry.
we are the cavalry, right? So we are our own cavalry. We shall see what happens.
Yeah, you even ride in on ravens.
Exactly right. Old school cavalry ravens. I love the Raven. Raven is my absolute favorite ship in the game. So anytime we get to use it, makes me happy. That's what I started when I started playing in 2006. That was like the end goal. I wanted to be in a Raven. And the first time I got to sit in that ship was pretty sweet.
That was your first major goal?
That was my first major goal, get in a Raven.
Yeah, ravens are well, lately they've kind of made they come and go. They've sometimes been good for PvE, and sometimes they're good at PvP. But they used to have, there's a lot of tricks you could do with ravens because they're such a heavy missile boat. So there was some interesting things that you could do with them back in the day, and they're back now with I guess there's a bushy ravens, or what are they called?
Well, we
jumpy
call
ravens.
them 3G. That's our internal nickname for them.
I think NC calls them jumpy ravens because they keep jumping around. We can't.
Right.
It took us a while to figure out.
We call them three guide ravens. It's kind of a joke, like a Game of Thrones thing. But the reality is that it's basically ravens and command destroyers, and we boost them around. And that's kind of our main long range doctrine right now. You can put good DPS. And you can hit out from 300 kilometers or more. So that's what we tend to use on Keepstar grids. That's what we were able to use to kill the NC.Keepstar last, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. And if you run the doctrine right, it makes it possible. That's
your Keepstar killing doctrine, isn't it?
That's it. That's why we're in here with that. So it's no surprise. This is the new meta. And now I will say, there's a big difference between fighting on a Keepstar grid with an anchoring Keepstar that is not gunned or manned, and fighting on a grid with a fully armed and operational Keepstar. We've been able to do both, but obviously, it's much harder when you're getting shot at. But one of the benefits to this fleet is that it's mobile, and we were able, at least as you saw in the last Keepstar fight. Even with supers and titans on grid, we can stay out of range of the titans, and we can move fast enough to keep the super fighters chasing us, so we can keep putting DPS on the main target. So it's a good doctrine. It's pretty flexible. It's hard to use unless you know what you're doing, but fortunately we got the guys that invented it, so they're pretty good at running these fleets.
So on the kill board now, there have been a few ravens die already to the keep.
Did they die? Can you see if it was the Keepstar's Doomsday or if the Keepstar is anti-subcap weapon for it?
I think it was just bombs. It doesn't have a Doomsday marker on it.
Because it will be interesting to see how the Keepstars fit. Keepstars and Nullsec are typically fit for anti-supercapital weapons, because supercapitals are a thing in Nullsec, but they're not a thing in wormhole space. And so in wormholes, you just have whether you do anti-capital or anti-subcap. Now, for Hard Knock's case, you could think, well, it's really impractical to seed our wormhole with enough capitals to properly fight with caps on a Keepstar grid. So we'll just fit it for anti-subcaps, and we'll shred subcaps that come there, because that's the more likely scenario. So we'll have to see. If it is anti-subcap fit, it could pose some trouble for the Raven fleet. I'm not sure if the Raven fleet has ever fought an anti-subcap Keepstar yet.
By the way, the Keepstar has taken out at least 2 ravens. It's kind of interesting. Keepstar itself is fighting back. Don't get too close to it if you're in a raven.
I think we're up to 5. Will do that. I think we're up to 5 now, and then 2 executors as well.
5 casualties. Now, I think that's going to be the real challenge for you guys, is to keep yourself supplied, motivated, and in the system. You got to keep yourself in the game. This is their home, and once you're out, it'd be hard to get back in.
I think with proper hull control and everything, I think that it'll be pretty easy to keep everything going well, especially being how catching everybody by surprise, and hopefully everyone else isn't already here. And
yeah, so
the Keepstar Doomsday is always a problem, and that's something that I think we all get frustrated with. but there are ways around it, and we have a means of dealing with it. So nobody expected the. You're not going to kill a keep star, even in a wormhole, even a regular keep star. You're not going to kill one without casualties. In the last fight, which is what I was referring to when I was talking about Titans and Supers, obviously we don't have those in wormhole space because you can't build them here.
You need sovereignty to build those, by the way.
You need sovereignty. You need an iHub upgrade to be able to build supers. So there's no iHubs in wormhole space. So there's no supers and Titans in here. But the fact is, even in the fight with NC Dot, we still lost ships because at some point somebody's going to do something dumb. We're going to get caught. It's not 100% perfect, but managing the casualties and trying to make sure guys don't get potted and getting them reshipped and back out. I mean, that's going to be part of it. But that's stuff that was all done in the planning phase because you have to be prepared for that type of stuff. Otherwise, why would you bother trying to come in here if we weren't ready to deal with that?
What are you guys doing?
So that's confirmed 7 Ravens killed by the Doomsday, and as a counter to that, the way Doomsdays work is they seek the highest mass ships. So they're looking for the biggest, heaviest ships, and that's what the Doomsday electricity is attracted to. So to counter that, they're putting in executors that have high mass in order to distract attention away from the Ravens. Kind of an interesting tactic.
Did you guys swap to execs as opposed to Celastises?
I just got an update. We are about a third of the way through the Keep Star right now.
Yeah, hearing it's at 70%, so you guys are assaulting the Keep Star now.
So
right.
I'm looking at this executor.
I am not on that grid, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at this executor fit on Z-Kill, and it's interesting that it has a Higgs rig on it, but that's an interesting thought that to distract the Doomsday from the mainline DPS.
That's exactly the point of it. Those ships are designed to die.
I was going
they're
to say,
supposed to soak up the
Initiative's been
Doomsday.
doing that for over a year and a half now. Like since they've been shooting at Keep Stars, they've been using that.
It has started. Matterall, you're not talking again. Your sound's off.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I just gave an update, and I'm the only one that heard it. In here we have, luckily, Brisk, Rubal, and Artemis, and Kaskora, Laser, Clear, and Lieutenant Condor. These are people who are, some of these people are actually in the fight itself. We don't have a live camera. We don't have a camera in there, but we do have a picture up on screen. You can see that the Raven fleet from the initiative has begun their assault on Fort Knox Keep Star. I believe it's Fort Knox, or it could be the other Keep Star that doesn't have a name. And it's about 70% through its shields now.
Yeah, right now we have multiple fleets in the system. I am not with the Raven fleet, so I do not know what is going on over there. So all my guys who are yelling, "Brisk, don't give out secrets." Well, I don't know what's going on, so obviously I can't do that. But we are sitting basically trying to manage our hull control with our secondary fleet, and that's what I'm doing.
And that is critical work. I think that's the more important job to do. You almost want to put your better people on that kind of thing. Not trying to flatter you, Brisk, but that is going to be critical to the success of the overall operation. Can you control this?
If that's
place?
what we're supposed to be doing, I am obviously in the wrong.
Wait, you're on the Keep Star, or are you protecting?
I should be on the Keep Star if you want the best guys doing hull control.
Yeah, top damage.
So, not,
Don't underestimate yourself. Yeah, so that is going to be going forward. This invasion can only be as quick as what, 4 days, 3 days?
I believe 3 days is the minimum amount of time based on the way that the Citadel timers are reduced for wormhole space. Keskor, can you confirm or deny that?
The way that timers work.
Yeah, what's the minimum amount of time?
By the way, we have a picture up of the Doomsday wiping out some ravens. You can see it's a dramatic picture. Unbelievable. Look at that. Destruction of at least 7 ravens, if not more. This could have been a second blast that came from the battle station.
But yeah, timers are significantly reduced in wormholes. I believe for the, I knew all this at one point, and I still haven't had my coffee yet this morning. So I'll admit that I'm not specific on the exact numbers, but it's like the timer. It's like when you first hit the shield, it's like within a day and some change for the next timer, and then after that, it's within a whatever the week is, like the whole timer is on the next
The
week.
reinforcement day.
The reinforcement day, yeah.
That's what I recall as well.
First,
Yeah.
I mean, the difference between wormhole space and nullsec, at least in this regard, is it's more like how structure bashes go in low sec and high sec. Because you don't have sovereignty, you don't have ADMs, therefore you don't get the extra benefit of longer times. So it's a little bit shorter. But that's good for us because that means we don't have to stay here for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
killing Keepstar and high sec's a lot harder, or null sec's a lot harder.
If
Sorry,
you
go ahead.
time it right, you can get it done in basically a weekend or 3 days. Was kind of the idea, is that if you know which day the reinforcement timer is, you can just make sure that you time the other 2 days before that, and then you'll be able to get.
I don't know. I know that you can go up to the Keepstar and use a hacking module on it to see, but I don't know that that's been done or not. I don't know what the timer is set for this.
I'm sure the attackers have figured that out. I'm sure that they checked that. That's something that they would know.
And it is worth noting that because there are multiple structures in this system, if Hard Knocks were expecting an invasion or simply as smart practice, they would set the ending date for the vulnerability for these structures to be separate days throughout the week. Meaning that if any attacker wanted to clear all of their structures or even a handful of them, they would have to do it over a longer period of time rather than just blitzing through everyone on a single day.
Yeah, making it a lot more painful. Yeah, just on this grid alone, there's a Satio, 3 Fortizars, and 2 Keepstars. And then looks like another 3 or 4 Ratarus as well on the same grid.
This is a static H296. That's a C5 static. What is that? I don't know how to translate that. Keskoro, does that make any sense to you?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Static is H296.
Oh, yeah. So every wormhole has a static connection, which means that there's always going to be a connection of that type out of the hole. And whenever it collapses, there will be a new one of that same type that spawns. The H296, it indicates what class it is. And in Rage's case, it's a C5.
The amount of things that you have to know to fly in wormhole is just astounding. It really is advanced Eve, isn't it?
When you get to the point where you know all those numbers too, like you just look at it and you're like, oh, it's a X877, it's a C4, I know that, and you just kind of you just know it after.
Those letters and numbers represent what you see when you warp to the wormhole when you go to it. Like it can be a K162, which means it's the other side of some kind of a static. Or if you warp to it and it's an N405, it's those numbers and letters represent what type of a wormhole it is, what ships can fit through it, how much mass can fit through it, and how long they're going to be there.
Well, it's no wonder this is where the president or the CEO of CCP plays, right? He plays in wormhole space. I think that's pretty well known. Even when I talk to Hilmar, I'm talking E3 like 2012 or something. We had a talk about EVE players and how dedicated they were, and just how sophisticated the players at EVE can get. And he had said, like, yes, it's, you know, building sandcastles is one thing, but have you seen what wormholers do? It's like they're building cities out of sand. It's so much more advanced than just the regular play, and the regular play itself is incredibly advanced compared to other games. So this is very interesting because I thought that Hard Knocks was pretty rough on other wormhole groups, you know, evicting them or supporting their eviction or whatever. And so I figured that wormhole groups would be pretty happy to see like the HK fall, if they indeed fall. By the way, we don't know which way this is going to go. But Cascora, you want to tell us why that isn't the case?
I mean, there's going to be people that want to see them fall from old grudges. And there's a lot of old grudges in wormhole space too. But for the most part, for me at least, with wormhole space, it's only beneficial to have more people in wormhole space. Like our connections are random. There's large amounts of empty wormholes out there. So the more people in it increases the chance that we're going to find content in wormhole.
She said in it.
And whatever. But I mean, HK has been a big force for wormholes. I mean, they have made wormholes more visible to the rest of Eve. They've definitely become a big force, and they put wormholes on a map in a way with, you know, with that a lot of other groups hadn't. I mean, they're a big part of wormhole history, and so I think that a lot of wormholers would want to rally behind our own, especially when being threatened by someone from outside. Because, I mean, you might not like Hard Knocks, but they're still wormholers, and that's still who we are. And, I mean, I know that there's going to be people that are going to say that, no, screw Hard Knocks or whatever, but at least from my standpoint, that's always how I felt. Like, we've seen other evictions in the past, and I think it's always more beneficial for the community to have more people in our own community.
Oh,
We agree, Cascora. That's why we brought in it to the wormhole. We're bringing more people into wormholes. Right.
You got to stay. That's the key.
I'll be here for a week.
All right, the shields are actually at 50% now. That Keepstar will probably enter reinforcement of shields. It'll go into armor and then ultimately a final timer, which will be for its hull. But looks like it's at 50%. Also, we see that Initiative is putting down some what looks like Astra houses. Sorry.
Yeah, there's going to be people are going to want to put down staging structures so that they can dock and be safe in the meantime.
They're putting down Reitarus. Why would they put down engineering structures? I guess to build ships.
They're the cheapest.
they're cheap, Matterhorn.
Right. I know they're cheap. That seems like reason enough. But they wouldn't be using those to build ships too, would they at all?
I doubt it. The time it takes to build ships, especially any ships of note, is way too long. It's just they're using them because they're basically disposable.
I see.
Correct.
Yeah. So cheap. Okay.
I mean, look, we have to. We are under the impression, and at least what we have told our guys, is these fleets will be up 23 hours a day, 7 days a week until this is done. So people are going to have to go. They're going to have to leave. I've got stuff to do tonight. But somebody's going to have to be in here fighting, watching these holes, doing everything literally around the clock. So we got to have a place to drop shit off so folks can do that and then come back out as they come and go. So I mean, this is going to be hard for a week, but you know, we're going to do it.
Well, it looks like
Doomsday just cycled again.
Doomsday cycled again. You can see in the picture that we have up on screen what that looks like. You have a Raven fleet from the Initiative getting blasted by the station. By the way, is that the original Keepstar, the first Keepstar? Called it Hard Knocks? We know?
It's called Fort Knox.
Fort Knox, that's it, yes. So that's the first one, and the first one that was ever built anywhere in the game. And it's just blasted again at the Raven fleet. It's taking out a chunk of them at a time. It doesn't look like it'll be enough. Shields are at 50%. And Initiative, at the meantime, is putting up cheap staging points in the form of engineering structures, the smallest ones, called Reitarus. And those are 5 of those have gone up. So this looks like they're putting down the siege structures they're going to need to take down this Keepstar.
The second Keepstar that's on grid here is also named Unassailable.
Okay, so that must be the sin. That's very much a challenge to the rest of the Unassailable Wealth, the term. is something that is put out, I guess, during World War B, the Casino War, where unassailable wealth was the criticism about the casinos. They were people making money outside the game. They were unassailable. You couldn't take them down. They were generating so much income they could buy mercenaries to take out anybody they wanted. That was the landscape 3 years ago when casinos were a real thing. And so they were called unassailable wealth was the big criticism about those. So that's a little bit of a poke at that history. So the first one that was ever built was called Fort Knox. And the second one that was built as kind of an insurance policy inside the same system is called unassailable wealth. Right now, they're fighting off of Fort Knox, which is very interesting.
Risk, is this going to be enough to bring Noobman back?
Unlikely.
That's an interesting
Newman
point
is not.
that you.
He can't come back.
That's why it's unlikely.
Yeah, he is life banned from the game. That was a leader of Hard Knocks, who was banned for showing private information because he was part of CSM last session. And I believe he showed information that was under seal, basically under NDA, to a corp mate to say, look, this is why I'm leaving. I don't like the direction the game's going. And in doing so, he got himself permanently life banned. So that character is gone. But also, he got the guy that he showed it to banned for a year. So they both got nailed. So if Brisk tries to show you information, don't look at it. It's a trap.
Setting you up, Brisk.
I'm a good boy. I play by the rules. And since I'm a lawyer, actually, I read the NDA, so I know what I can and can't do. But it's a shame. Noobman was a good guy. It's just a shame. But yeah, but there are a lot of good folks in HK still around. It's going to be crazy.
So I'm hearing that citadels are also being anchored. Is that true, or are they Raitaru's engineering complexes? Anybody know?
I've only seen Raitaru's, but I have not seen anything beyond that. At least on grid right now.
It doesn't seem like an Astor House or any citadel would do you any good, anything better than an engineering complex. It would just be more expensive.
It won't, and it's not like they're any more defendable. So at the end of the day, it's kind of pointless to waste the extra ISK to get them in here. We really just need a place to throw our clothes down and sleep on the floor and then get back out and fight.
Yeah. And plus, there's no longer a moon restriction. You used to have to tower moons. So 1 moon equals 1 tower, and that was it. If you had 5 moons, you could put 5 towers inside of a system, which means if you controlled all 5, you prevented anyone from building infrastructure in your system. That is totally thrown out in the last 5 years with structures being completely changed. And even engineering complexes, which is basically the replacement of towers as far as mining moons, those can be put anywhere. They don't need to be 1 per moon. So there really is no advantage to putting down citadels as opposed to these engineering complexes that are down. And we know there are 5 Raitarus being put down. Again, those are engineering complexes. Really cheap.
23, actually.
23?
Yeah, there's a lot more down now.
Wow. So you're basically you're dropping them all over the
Told
place.
you we're not fucking around, Matterall.
Yeah, look at that. Wow. I'm looking at an overview that has plenty. This is a big deal. I don't know. Cascora, do you think HK has enough people to respond to this kind of a thing?
I mean, it's hard to say. I don't really know what their defenses are looking like in there. I've never known. I mean, that's not something that they reveal to us, but I definitely wouldn't count them out. I mean, HK have been in that wormhole for a long time, and they've been dug in, and I'm sure that they just have resources out the ass in there. So I'll be really interested to see when some of the big fights happen.
Yeah, I think this is part of this is psychological warfare, right? If you see this much coming at you, do you say, the game sucks anyway, I'm out, I'm not going to participate? Or is this something that motivates you to jump in? It depends on every person. It's no fun to fight in a losing cause. It's it's a lot of work and it sucks because you know you're going to die. But if you think you can win, you know, the motivation totally swings the other way because it'll be the great defense, the thing that's historically written about that you guys defended against thousands of people. And so it really is intimidation to have this many things coming at you at one time.
There's also just the fact that the idea is once they go in, that's it. Like they're not going to have a lot of opportunities to bring in reinforcements because the whole control aspect. Because if they leave a door open enough to bring in their own stuff, it also leaves an opportunity for Hard Knocks to bring in stuff too. So, I mean, I know that HK has some really, really talented pilots. They've got some great people with a lot of great resources, and I know that they're not going to take this sitting down. So, I mean, even if it's a huge force, they're going to give it their all, and I'm bet you'll be surprised at how much their all actually translates to.
Yeah, we just got word that the Imperium has now pinged for fleets as well, so you see reinforcements coming in for initiative. Again, they're working on the shield timer at the moment. That is probably down under 40% by now.
35%.
Hello,
As
Carneros.
I'm here.
35%. And we have Carneros from the leader of the Bastion. How you doing, Carneros?
Hello. Hello. What's going on?
Well, you missed a lot.
We're live on air, by the way.
Oh,
just so
dear
you know.
Lord.
Yeah. We jumped into a live situation. We're running on Talking in Stations. On
I heard
Twitch.
what you said about pinging, and I went to go quickly look to see if I see a ping.
I don't know what would reinforcements do at this stage, because it looks like you're going to get the first timer. You're going to have to wait a day, unless you need them for the second timer or for the second keepstar.
It's like Kaskor was saying. You want to get. They have the door open right now, but they're guarding it. They have the most numbers that they're going to have for a few hours at least after they finish these initial Rios. So they want to get their numbers in and logged off in system. That way they don't have to open the door again.
And the more people you get in, the more people are in system that can basically log off and log back in later when needed, I imagine. So you want to get in. Important to get in and stay in.
There's a "that's what she said" joke somewhere in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's down to 35%. That's the shield on Fort Knox. Never thought we'd see this. This is incredibly unusual, which is why we went live. You can see we're not completely prepared with the show, but it's something completely unexpected.
Yeah. Wow.
Carneros, are you just waking up to this too, or did you know it was going to happen? Or
I just came out of another meeting. No, I did not know it was happening. This was a surprise. After it started, I'm probably not supposed to say anything that occurs in the Autocrat channel, but Sister Bliss linked us the Reddit post, and we all had a giggle together. But
so that's how it was announced to you guys?
Not until after it was public. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, given how easy it is for Wormhole Crew to turtle up and protect their space, if any of this had leaked even remotely, we would not be able to do this at all. And all the work and the 2 months of planning and everything else that had gone into this would have been down the toilet. So don't feel bad, Carneros. I don't think anybody knew. even half the CEOs in Init Corps did not know. Most of the line members did not know. Almost all of the line members did not know. Even most of the FCs didn't know. So that's how we were able to pull this off. Otherwise, it would not have worked out the way that it's worked out so far. But like, you know, as Matterall keeps saying, and we keep telling everybody, this has barely even started. You know, this is the first step in a very long journey.
So we have initiative attacking the wormhole Keepstar of Hard Knocks, called Fort Knox, which is a great name. And we have reinforcements being pinged from the Imperium. Now that word is spreading, this will be pretty exciting to be a part of. You can imagine a lot of pilots are going to be getting into those fleets, try to get into this hole to try to be a part of this fight. We expect it to go on for at least 3 days. These evictions take some time, so there's been a lot of planning in the we imagine months before to get supplies in. And now that they're here, and now that the surprise is sprung, the gates are open, and you have hordes coming from Delve to jump in. Horde's a bad word, but basically, I mean, it's not an accurate word because we have pandemic horde, but we mean the horde of pilots from Delve, which is Imperium space. I would imagine that this is going to be the more the merrier, so Test might get involved as well.
Last I heard, Test is rooting around in Fountain right now, trying to cause.
Yeah, so it is worth noting that the pilots who go into this wormhole, they can't just set a jump clone and go back out to their crabbing space or go back out to fly home defense fleets or to fly on other content fleets. They have to stay in that wormhole if the Imperium wants to keep all the doors closed. So this could leave some Imperium space open, but you gotta remember, like, super pilots are probably still sitting in their supers, Rorqual pilots are probably still sitting in their Rorquals. Everybody's got alts nowadays, so it's not going to be completely empty as far as defenses are concerned.
Tell you what, watching this Raven fleet just get boosted around by command destroyers around this grid is pretty.
Okay. All right, getting some pictures here. We'll try to show you them in a minute.
We're up to 30 Raytaros. You're muted again.
Sorry.
Command destroyers have a 6 kilometer radius of a bubble that they can boost ships.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to explain it. I was have myself on mute because otherwise you'll hear a bunch of Fortnite in the background.
If it's Saturday, it's Fortnite.
It's Fortnite day. But I'll have quiet in just a minute. So, wanted to get caught up. I was saying that the picture that's up is actually a Boosh Ravens, and somebody want to describe what that technique is when they attack? And you can see the Keepstar in the background, those lights. But somebody want to explain what that is?
So essentially, what we do with the Boosh Ravens is the Ravens anchor on an FC, and then we have command destroyers that are along for the ride. And basically, the FC will call for one of the command destroyers to activate their micro jump drive field generator, and that pulls the entire fleet that's within range of the command destroyer with it 100 kilometers in whatever the spool up time is. So that basically means these guys can move very quickly around the grid, and you can chain Boosh, basically call out the FC calls out one command destroyer after another, and within the span of maybe 10 seconds, 13 seconds, you could be 500, 600, 700 kilometers away from where you were originally. It provides Ravens, that are battleships that are relatively slow, with a lot more mobility on grid, and it lets them do the kinds of things that typically would otherwise would keep a fleet stable, and they wouldn't be able to move, and it would end up getting destroyed. So it's a very flexible doctrine. We use command destroyers for a lot of our doctrines. Our Snatch fleets, our Bush Raven fleets, our Stuka fleets, they're all based around the concept of the micro jump drive.
Well, there's a good question here. By the way, we know that the Fort Knox Keepstar's shield is about 13%, so it's going down. When will Hard Knocks really defend? The armor timer or the hull timer?
I think that's going to mostly depend on when they get reinforcements in. So if something
Cube is at
happens
1%, by the way.
soon, and they're able to get their reinforcements in quickly, then they may go for the armor timer, because it would also limit the amount of time that the attackers, the Imperium, has to bring in their own doctrines, to bring in their own ships, and be properly prepared for a defense fleet, whereas Hard Knocks would theoretically already have those pre-staged. But more than likely, I think it's going to be the final timer.
What I would say is, generally speaking, at least in nullsec, the armor timer tends to be the one that you want to really defend as much as you can, because that still gives you the possibility of docking up if it doesn't work.
Keepstar is now reinforced.
Whereas if you're on the final hull timer, trying to get your stuff out is a lot harder when the keep's gone. There's no tether, there's no docking. You're basically just stuck there. And I mean, that's what we saw in UALX with the loss of Test Keepstar the first time. So it's difficult, to say which one is going to be, but more likely than not, I think it's probably going to be the armor timer, but we'll see. It could be the hull. And by the way, Keepstar's been roughed.
It's interesting to contrast the mechanics between nullsec and wormhole space as far as the Keepstar is concerned, because the big important factor with being able to dock up and tether on armor versus hull timer and nullsec is supers. So you could dock your supers there, you could get out of them, you could asset safety them, etc. And in wormhole space, you don't have those. Furthermore, there is no asset safety. So anything that's docked in this Keepstar is just going to pop right back out and be looted or destroyed. So those factors may come into play. They may try and fight on the armor timer just so they can tether back up and dock up. But even on the final timer, there isn't... How do I put this? Even on the armor timer, the extra benefit of being able to dock up doesn't really matter if you lose the timer, because all your stuff is dead anyway. There's nowhere else for it to go.
Oh, good. Once again, I was muted. So just want to confirm that the Fort Knox Keepstar shield has been reinforced. Looks like 1 day in 7 hours it will come out of reinforcements.
Do we know what structure is being hit next?
I imagine they'll go for the second Keepstar. You want to do both these at the same time. This is a full-on assault. This is not timer tricks or time zone tanking or any of that kind of stuff. This is a mad dash to do as much damage as possible at the same time, because the advantage for the invading forces of initiative and the Imperium is going to be numbers. You do not want to stretch this out for them. You'll lose casuals. And we do want to reiterate, wormhole space is a different landscape when it comes to structures. These things, they get destroyed, they lose everything inside of them. This is going to be a fight to the death for Hard Knocks and Laserhawks if they can get in here and try to help them out. I don't think Laserhawks is really a target, because this isn't really a target, a grudge match or anything like that. This is trying to take a trophy away in Eve. This was the first Keepstar ever built. You want to be the ones known for taking it out.
To answer Azeroth in the Twitch chat, they do have a Satio on the same grid as both of the Keep Stars, but currently only the first Keep Star has been hit.
So we expect the armor timer for Fort Knox to be at 0200 on, I guess that would be Monday. We'll try to bring you live coverage of that. We'll try to bring you live coverage of every timer. This is such a big deal. We got lucky and were able to get information that this was happening when it started. And we hastily put ourselves on the air, as you can see, but we'll get ourselves organized and be able to bring some coverage. Maybe we'll actually give you live footage in there. I don't think there's tie-dye in there, but
there is no tie-dye.
Yeah, there probably isn't much to see beyond the images that we're showing you. This is one of those crazy areas of the game where there's a lot more secrecy. So you don't have local, you can't tell how many people are in this place. Yeah, we'll get a crew, we'll get a camera crew in there. We have a lot of initiative friends, but a lot of them are busy making sure that the surprise actually happens. Now that the surprise is over, we might be able to get some cameras. So this is Talking in Stations. Thanks for tuning in. We are showing you live coverage of the invasion of Wormhole Space's Fort Knox. We call it Fort Knox because that is the name of the first Keep Star that was built by Hard Knox. This is their home. This is their first building that they put up, their first star base, and it is under attack by Initiative, which did a surprise attack maybe an hour or two ago. Largely, it's the Initiative with some help from the Imperium. And the Imperium is now sending reinforcements. We expect there to be more than 1,000 invaders coming into this system. There was at least 900 before. So they will probably get reinforcements. The Keepstar defended itself by blasting the Raven battleships that were attacking it and managed to kill handful, really not enough to save itself. So we'll see what happens in the next few days. This invasion,
guys, I'd love to spend the rest of the time with you, but I'm getting pulled away, so I will have to drop here for a little bit, but I will come back as soon as I can. So.
Thanks. Well, we're actually wrapping up coverage, so I have to go too pretty soon. We'll stick around for a few more minutes, answer some questions, talk to you guys. But thanks, Brisk, for coming in and telling us all the stuff that you did. Really appreciate it. That was
he's out already.
Brisk Rubal from the Initiative and also a CSM member. And yeah, so for those that didn't get that, there is no tie-dye in this fight. There's probably only 1,000 to 1,500 people fighting. The node was reinforced, so the Initiative managed to send a signal to CCP to say this is going to happen. Make sure that the servers can handle the load of players fighting. Again, 900 to, I would imagine, 1,200 people fighting inside this system at one time. Servers easily able to handle it.
Well, right now it was basically just one side versus the Citadel. There wasn't really that much fighting as far as player versus player ship battles going on right now. So I'm sure that will come in the next few days.
Good point. I know that Hard Knox was scrambling, sending out word to their allies and to their own members to get in to see what they could do. There's at least one defender in there inside that Keepstar, shooting the Doomsday at the fleet that's jumping around. And actually managed to kill a few. Now, I myself have used the Doomsday weapon on a Keepstar a few times when the Goons and Imperium were attacking my Keepstar in Oninen. But Goonswarm was really good at that fight. They knew exactly how far to stay out of range of the weaponry. They also brought ships that were not susceptible to Doomsdaying unless it was repeated Doomsdaying. So they played it well. In this case, Ravens have died. It's much different scenario here. Now, what happens to initiative once they achieve these first few goals? Do they log off in system and stick around? Do they, park their ship somewhere?
You almost certainly have to stay in system. You cannot leave and come back. As to whether they log out in space or dock in a structure, they may be putting up a pause on one of the moons. We'd have to look around and see if that's the case, and if that's the case, they could log out inside the pause shields. But as I understand it, they don't have a right to online yet to dock up and log out in.
Yeah, there are really no defensive people in here at the moment. It looks like from this kill report, there's 5 people from Hard Knocks. And there's like
There's a handful of their pilots on the Keepstar tethered, but they didn't do anything during the fight. They literally just sat tethered and warped around to different citadels, and that was about it.
Yes, girl, you've been. Oh, go ahead, Lieutenant Cardinor.
I was just going to say, I think it's going to be important to know how many people they actually have in system. Like, if Init and them can maintain hull control and they don't have their PvP alts in here, they're kind of screwed.
Yep. That's what I was kind of making the point earlier about, this being such a big surprise on a wide scale level, that most of the people that are usually in this wormhole are probably just alts, or a handful of people, or probably most people are off in their farming holes or in a different, staging wormhole or whatever that that Hard Knocks is, where they're staging right now.
Oh, it looks like a pause has been put up with an extra large ship maintenance array. So if anything, that's where supplies will arrive in order to make sure that the pilots who are in system have enough hardware to last the 3-day siege. That's a very important step. They're putting their logistics to work to make sure that they can actually carry out this 3-day assault.
It'll be interesting to see if they have the manpower and the mental fortitude to constantly roll the wormhole, as opposed to just backstopping it, for instance. So the difference would be if you just crit a wormhole, that is to say you take away the majority of its mass such that any ship like bigger than a capsule or a frigate, for example, would collapse the wormhole, you're guaranteed that fleets won't get in. But if you're in a case where you're worried about individual like PvP alts getting in just over time as you're waiting for the final timers to come out, then leaving a wormhole just crit isn't sufficient. Those pilots could still scepter in, they're bubble immune that can go through. You could even tank them against smart bombing battleships, for example, which could be a tactic to stop it. However, if you have enough pilots with the Imperium who are willing to suffer the boredom, you can constantly roll the wormhole and almost be guaranteed that they won't find a way in unless they're rage rolling themselves and get lucky with the spawn.
The interesting thing about this specific hole being a C5 is that there are quite a few more C5s than there are C6s in the game, but it still is really hard to roll into a specific hole with the random chances and the amount of wormholes that there are as far as C5.
What happens to a Keepstar when it's reinforced? Does it lose any of its power?
Not until the second timer. The services will turn off on the second one, I believe, if I'm not.
So how does that play into a strategy of having a? Is it even a factor to have clone bays available? The services for clone bays.
Clone bays, no.
No, it absolutely is. You've got to remember these are extremely high skill point and extremely high wealth pilots. They will have multiple clones and multiple clone bases and multiple citadels to swap between virtue clones, slave clones, snake clones. If they have dreads in there, they'll likely have dread capital clones, fax clones, etc. So if you take these things into their second reinforcement timer, whatever clone they're in at the time and whatever clone is stuck in that clone bay, they can't swap between them again. So they've got to decide, okay, are we going with an armor doctrine? Do we need everybody in their slave clones? We're going with the kiting doctrine. Do we need snakes? Who's going to be flying their capital on which character? That character needs to get into their Geno set, etc.
But as far as the normal null sec kind of ideal, as far as like being able to jump clone, of course you can't do that in wormholes, so that becomes null and void.
Indeed.
What about markets? Like, that shouldn't be a factor in a fight like this unless they bring in a lot of reinforcements, or is that just all go to public contracts? And
For us, when we were evicted, every ship became a corp ship. Like everything was basically put into the public use, and we actually had people who their whole job was just handing out ships to whoever needed one. Like when you're in that kind of situation, every asset is valuable, and it's no longer you don't no longer really care about who it belongs to. Now, granted, HK is in a much better position than we were when we got evicted. We had a lot of people that weren't prepared with the right ships and everything, which I'm sure are, HK is a home defense setup of some variety. So they might not need to resort to that. But at least with stuff like markets, like no one's going to be buying shit. Everyone's just going to be, borrowing or loaning or whatever.
Right. Now they have, I'm sure they have capital ships in this place. How easily could they take out towers and destroy the ship caches of the invading forces?
Well, I mean, it really depends, again, on how many people do they actually have in the hull, how many can they commit to a fleet to be able to go and reinforce large towers or, and defend against, whatever the attacking forces can muster at a time to be able to defend them.
There's
I mean,
also
it's,
sort of
you don't want to waste your assets on destroying caches that may or may not have enemy ships in them. I mean, a lot of the people, if they have ships, are going to be sitting in them, I would imagine. And so, I mean, with stuff like this, like you want to be really careful about when you engage, because once you get potted out, that's it, you're done. Like you don't get to come back and get another ship later. So you want to be very careful about your engagements, where they are, when they are, and how you engage. And so they're not just going to go after ways to weaken them. They're probably going to wait for the timers.
And then another thing to think about too is that a max reinforced timer on a POS is a day 17, if I'm not mistaken, and the timer for the Keep Star, the armor timer, is less than that. So even at that point, we would still get through the second timer before they could even try and attempt to kill a boss.
And their Raitaroos would become online as well, which means they could just transfer all the ships over to a Raitaroo, and the POS would die empty.
Yep.
Which I think that's going to be interesting to see if HK will actually form for the Anchoring Citadels, because that's like a base of 24-hour. So then you'll have a time span, say 8 to 10 hours, say anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, that this armor timer is going to be coming out in between those citadels anchoring. And will they form for the citadels anchoring, or will they wait for that and defend the Keep Star?
I mean, with so many citadels anchored, I think at this point it's impossible to prevent them all from onlining, or to prevent all of them from onlining is impossible, which means that to try and fight any of them is going to be ridiculous. Like there's really no point. If one onlines, all of them come online, and they're just redundant Raitaroos at that point, and it's impossible to prevent one from onlining.
Even with a decent amount of numbers, there's I think something like 35 Ratarus in here. There's no way that Hard Knocks has the ability to go and attack every one of these without at least a couple of them getting online, with the defenders even being almost AFK.
I need to head out here myself. If anyone has any other questions about wormholes or how anything that functions in these kind of situations, feel free to hit me up on Discord. I'll be around. So
thank you, Keskora.
Yeah, we'll see how it starts to unfold in the next couple.
What should we actually look for next? What's the next big moment?
It's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be the timers. It's all about the timers for these kind of ops. People will try to maybe have some plays for hull control, but it's impossible to know when someone might try to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
So really, after everything's reinforced, the attackers are gonna set up hull control. They're gonna get to a defensive position, and the next move will probably be at the timer.
Okay, so that timer means the armor timer for the Keep Stars.
Yeah, whichever of their defending structures has the first timer to come out. The first structure of note, anyway.
Yeah. Well, it'll be this Fort Knox, looks like the first timer. Okay, so that'll be roughly Monday at 0200. I imagine that's UTC. But it's about an hour and a half from sorry, an hour and 0.6 from, or 1 day and 6 hours from now.
1 day, 6 hours, 40
Thanks,
minutes.
thanks, Keskora. Really appreciate your insight.
Yeah, I'll catch you all later.
We'll be wrapping up soon here. It looks like the first timer is already achieved. The infrastructure is being set up for the attack. You have 35 engineering platforms put down inside of what's called the Rage system. It's a wormhole system. The home of Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks has 2 keep stars in here. One's called Fort Knox, which has just been reinforced. And the other one is called Unassailable Wealth, which will probably be reinforced shortly. The attackers are initiative, and there's about 900 of them. And Hard Knocks is really just standing by, trying to figure out what they're going to do to retaliate. They basically have to wipe out 1,000 players in order to save their whole. It's going to be very interesting. And they have to do that within like 2 or 3 days. So they have allies. They have Laserhawks who are probably going to throw in to help them. They definitely don't have enough people if they were to do to stand up toe to toe. It's going to take some know-how, but that's what Hard Knocks has. Laserhawks and Hard Knocks are wormholers, and they know how to this terrain better than anybody else. All right, guys. You have anything else? If not, I'm going to cut it and try to publish it as quickly as possible. We have we got up to 400 people watching, but there's really not much else to report on now. We will be back later on. You can always keep up with the news on Talking in Stations Discord. You can find that through the talkinginstations.com website. I guess it's as good a time as any to announce that Talking in Stations will be moving shows over to Talking in Stations Twitch. We have very happily been broadcasting on INN for a long time, but I have left INN and I'm putting all my effort into Talking in Stations. So we will be moving the show to Talking in Stations Twitch. We'll have a YouTube channel of our own. And we have new stuff coming January 1st. It's not going to be a news site like we've seen in the past. We're trying to evolve into a whole nother way of delivering news to you, getting you updated, telling you what's going on in EVE Online. So look for a lot of changes for Talking in Stations January 1st. But before all that, we're going to have some holiday parties that you're all invited to. So come hang out with us. We're going to put people on the air, fans, regulars who hang out in Talking in Stations Discord, which is where the community kind of meets and talks all day long. And we're going to just have a party with INN up until the end of the year. And then we'll say goodbye to INN and everybody else and start doing our own thing. We're going to, of course, remain friends with everybody else as well. But next episode, and that is just in a couple days, Talking in Stations is going to have CCP Rise, and we're going to talk about Abyssal Space. We'll also give you more information, the latest on this Fort Knox attack. And we're going to tackle Abyssal Space, among other topics. And don't forget, we have a second show every week now with Artemis Alboza, who takes us into deep dives. What are some of the stuff that we've covered in the last couple weeks?
We have covered quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. We've had a number of guests discussing Fwedit's recent departure from the initiative. We've been discussing the ongoing war in Cloudring and Pureblind. We've also had NPSI groups such as Spectre Fleet and Bombers Bar giving us insights into how those organizations run.
Yeah, it's been really good stuff. Nice informational shows. If you subscribe to the podcast, you've been getting them because it's all in the same feed. We've also starting to offer some of the stuff that we really want to get to, which is analysis. We have an Ashtarothi post that came out today or yesterday about the patch notes and how to look at them and how to keep them in context. And really happy to have that kind of stuff. So Talking in Stations really generating a lot of content, especially in the podcast form. Check that out. Subscribe to it through iTunes. You can subscribe to it through Spotify. Look it up as Talking in Stations. If you look it up as EVE Online, it probably won't come up, unfortunately. But this was our first live coverage. We're going to have more. And I want to thank everybody that's shown up to watch and everybody that's shown up to give information out. Especially want to thank the people who've given me information to allow me to help people really know what's going on out there. It's a surprising attack by Initiative. Really, really interesting stuff. This is definitely going to go down in history as a big, big deal. So if you're not a part of it, become a part of it. And if you can't, then watch it here on Talking in Stations. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time.